We've all been there. You get invited to go to...
Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please take your seats. Our program will begin now. Please welcome to the stage writer, actor, and producer Issa Rae with Bloomberg's Ashley Carmen.
Hey, y'all. Thank you. Hello, hello. Hey, perfect. We on strike. My bad. Thank you.
Wow, I love it.
Me too.
So everyone in this audience is well aware of your incredible career, but just to set the stage a little bit. So you got your start with a web series posted to YouTube, which eventually led to an amazing run as the creator and star of Insecure. Then you, obviously this summer, had this amazing role in Barbie. And you have Rap Shit Season 2 coming out in November on Max. And on top of all that, if it wasn't enough, you also, in 2020, started Hooray Media, which is a media company focused on film and TV, as well as radio and audio company, FET for marketing, and Color Creative for talent representation. Just a lot of stuff. So can you actually just give us the vision? Like, why have all those businesses under one umbrella?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everybody. It started as a natural extension of the businesses that I'd already started. So naturally, you know, I'm a writer, producer, and film and television has been the goal forever. And then even in doing a project like Insecure, I was constantly approached by labels to have a record deal. And I was like, oh, do they not watch the show? I'm not a good rapper. And that didn't interest me. And then someone was like, well, what if you had a label? And given that I was so heavy into the music supervision aspect of Insecure and learning along the way from the brilliant Keira Lehman, who was our music supervisor, to me, and also given our work with discovering emerging talented writers and artists in general, I was like, oh, I would love to do that on the music side. And so having a music label and building a music company and a music supervision company via radio made so much sense. Something like Color Creative came about just from my web to television model and wanting to replicate that. And it started off becoming a pilot program to discover new writers and produce their pilots for the cheap, get audiences excited about it, and then ultimately take it to a network. And then we were meeting all these writers and introducing them to managers and agents, and they would always come back to be like, hey, you got us these opportunities. I'm not really feeling my representation. And so we were like, we're doing so much of the work, let's build this out. And so many of the businesses that I have, Brand and FET, which came about with the brand marketing, you know, right now it's so essential for creators to kind of take the reins of telling their own stories in the brand space. And so given that we were also already doing that, we just wanted to build that out as well. So they're all natural progressions of things that already exist, and then implementing the team members to make it possible.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, you started Hooray in 2020. Obviously, peak pandemic times, but people were at home streaming more than ever. And looking forward here, we're at 2023. It's been a wild year for the film and TV industry. I'm just curious, like, to hear your perspective on the state of the industry. How has your expectations for your business changed as the industry has changed since then?
Woo. Yeah, you touched on a lot there, and specifically, this year, and even before the strikes happened, there was a clear industry shift that was very visible to me in terms of just even what was going to continue to be produced. And I think, for me, I've always just looked at it from the perspective of someone who makes TV and film, and I guess content in general that focuses and prioritizes Black people, Black audiences. And to me, that's why I came into this space, and that's where a lot of my passion lies. And so I've seen ebbs and flows of the industry, and I got to be a part of a renaissance in, post-scandal, and in 2015 with all these other creators of color being able to make stuff for audiences that craved that work. And so post-strike, given that there are going to be now less film and television shows made, and there's it's just very clear to me who's going to be left out of that. And that's not the first time that it's happened. When I think about, even the advent of cable and how networks were just like, we are losing our audiences. Our audiences are fragmented, so let's go broad. And broad always means white. And so I can see that happening again. But I think the difference now would hopefully be there are people in positions of power, people of color in positions of power that can greenlight, but they're all getting fired too. So that, to me, is like my pessimistic kind of fear of the state of the industry. But I remain committed to that focus, and I think we're all talking and we're all a little bit smarter now, and so hopefully history won't repeat itself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with this business, you are still at the whims of the studios and what they want to greenlight. So,
absolutely. And
you see this coming. So how do you get ahead of it? Are you having conversations with people in the space?
Having lots of conversations. I also don't want to be in a position again where I'm kind of at the mercy of studios in that way. And so, like I've always wanted to be, I've always wanted to be in a position where I could fund my own projects and the projects of other people that I believe in. And so for us, that is a North Star, to just be able to have, content funds. My ultimate goal is to have a studio, and it's just trying to build the building blocks to make that happen. So yes, conversations are being had, and we'll see.
How's funding going?
How's funding? You got some money?
Obviously.
That's yeah. Where we're at.
On the state of the changing industry, obviously Insecure's on Netflix now. Mm-hmm. Big shift. I was just curious if that's some decision that you had any say in.
Ooh, can I speak to that? No.
No, you had no say, or no, you can't speak to it.
I'm gonna let you put that up for interpretation. I don't know what's safe to say, but yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I was thrilled, honestly. I was thrilled that it went to Netflix. I think, any opportunity that allows us to have a wider audience, and it, went in a lot of territories that didn't have access to Insecure before, and even just internationally, obviously, people got exposed to it, but then also people just who didn't have HBO and who had no plans to get HBO. So in that way, I was just like, oh, a whole new generation, a whole new audience of people gets to watch the show for the first time, and I thought that was really cool.
Do you have any sense of how it's performing? Do you get any of that?
No, I don't have access to any of that, and I think that's also why these strikes are so important. We're fighting for access to data and transparency, and who knows where that will lead. But yeah, the short answer is no.
Do you feel like with the writers, at least agreement so far, do you feel like that went far enough for data transparency, or do you want even more?
I'm optimistic, but we'll see where the actors land, just in terms of what they have access to. But I think that this is going to be an evolving process. We don't know what we don't know, and I have faith in the negotiating committee, for what they fought for. It feels like, it was announced that this was unprecedented. But part of me is also, the business side of me is worried because even with something like Insecure, and worried is the wrong word, but I'm just like, oh, what is this going to be like? But with something like Insecure, the HBO execs were just like, we just want you to make stuff, and we don't have to worry about ratings, and we got a chance to grow. And so I do come from I don't have the pressure of the metrics of high ratings. We just were able to make things, and so now with the transparency, of course, there's going to be more pressure for your show to do well and to meet these quotas and these numbers. And that's not different from the 90s when you had the Nielsen ratings, which were like, you were put on blast, like, oh, your show is number 92, and you're canceled. So if we're going back to that, fine, but then, there's more pressure to make hits.
Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, I mean, the story of Suits has been such a big one where obviously it found so much success on Netflix. And I've just wondered, if something like that happens with Insecure, like what you stand to gain from it. Is it the audience? Is it money? Is it all of the above? Is it?
That's a good question, because even what's been negotiated is for new shows, right? So I don't know where I stand, but right now I can say that I'd be excited about audience exposure, possibly bitter at like, oh, I could have, if we had just waited a couple more years, I could have been like, good, but I don't have access to that information yet either.
Mm-hmm. You've obviously,
and I'm sure the Suits people are pissed too, like, right? Well, we would be in the same company. Maybe we'll have sad parties together.
You've done a lot of business with HBO. I just wanted to ask what you think of the name change.
I think it's, I'm not gonna lie, like I was initially like, what are y'all doing? But I do like that Max incorporates everything, and I think that there's something nice about HBO being a tab within that. I think Max allows for more diversity, just in terms of what you're watching, and less pressure there. In the same way that, something, I know that they don't like to be compared, but it's inevitable. But something like Netflix, that you're getting a variety of options. Mm-hmm. And I would say that to me, it's just more about the platform and knowing that HBO is its own branded thing. It allows HBO to have an identity and not necessarily be diluted by other things.
Mm-hmm. So you don't feel that has been compromised yet?
HBO?
Yeah.
I think people know what it is. I think that people know, as long as the brand identity remains and they remain kind of steadfast in their mission to champion writers and storytellers. I think that team over there is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about the strikes. The writer's strike is resolved. Screen actors are still striking. What do you want to see in an actor's contract? What do you want to, I guess, and even more generally, like, what do you think needs to change in Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, I know that, wages haven't been adjusted for inflation, residuals, can be improved. And I think, obviously, the AI issue is very terrifying. Mm-hmm. The idea that your likeness could be used without your consent it's horrifying. That's all we have. That's what I bring to the table, and you can use it and manipulate it how you feel. I think that's absolutely unacceptable, and it feels like a Black Mirror episode in that way. And I think that has to give. Like, there just has to be consent for your likeness, and I think the closer we can get to a compromise there, because with AI, you can also create fake people at the same time. So is it a matter of saying, an actor can only be a human being that can be paid, and is that the resolve? But then technically, is that feasible? Because I've seen instances where you're like, oh, you have a crowd of extras and you need to just kind of duplicate it and fill it in. And I've seen that in movies, and I've seen that done before, and that could be cost efficient. But then is it a matter of saying, okay, now extras get paid, 4 times as much as their likeness was used? So I say generally, I just want parity, and I think the transparency on that side to be able to participate in the success of your show, that only makes a lot of sense to me.
And you obviously are facing AI from two sides. You have the actor side, but also you're a writer, and scripts, ChatGPT could train on your scripts. I guess, how are you feeling about that threat? And do you feel like that agreement in the writers' contract goes far enough to protect you and others?
Again, I think that that's going to be an ongoing process. We're going to see how it's used, and we're going to see how competing companies, a lot of the conversation right now has been around tech companies and like making sure that, while we have agreements with studios for them to use AI kind of to experiment and to only credit writers for scripts, we don't have those same things with tech companies. So I did see, was that today? No, that was more on the SAG AI of it in terms of the bill that was just passed. But for tech companies, what's going to stop them from being able to take scripts and train AI to make movies on their side? Because they're not technically studios. They don't have a guild agreement. And I think there more just needs to be done, and in that way, studios and the guilds can team up against a lot of these tech companies.
And on the writer's side, there's now a new minimum number of writers for shows required, and we just talked about budgets tightening. And as someone who wants to start, funding and making your own shows, how does that affect, you, an independent person who's trying to make programming and having to staff? Like, do you have to do more with less as far as the money goes, or can you get bigger budgets, you think?
Can I get bigger?
Well, I guess I'm saying, if you were greenlit, would you be able to get a bigger budget, you think, to account for this, or are you going to have to do more with less? And as an independent, are you going to have to, think more strategically about how you run the business, I guess?
Fortunately, on this side, I can say, like, I need this number of writers, and we need this level of experience to make this show possible. As an independent creator, like, I would be held to the standards of the guild and make that work. And especially having been on the other side, like, I didn't know going into this that staff writers didn't get paid for their scripts, which is absurd. That's crazy, and I see the work firsthand that goes into creating these works. And so I would never short sight that for, like, minimal profits at the end of the day. It's not that serious to me. I have so much faith and respect for the work that writers do. So as an independent producer, we'd find a way to cut costs elsewhere, I guess.
Yeah. We're shockingly at time, but I want you to shout out Rap Shit if you can and talk about the new season.
Oh yeah, Rap Shit is coming out. I can talk about it as a writer because I'm not in it, but it's coming out the second season November 9th. And this season is really, really, really great, and I'm so excited for people to see it. I'm so excited for people to see the work that went into it. It was hard as hell to produce this season, but I'm look out for it. And thank you guys. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank y'all.
Please welcome to the stage Minecraft franchise corporate vice president and head of Mojang Studios, Helen Chiang, and Riot Games Entertainment chief content officer, Bryan Wright, with Bloomberg's Ed Ludlow.
Good afternoon. Bryan Wright, Helen Chiang. This is all about the confluence of Silicon Valley and Hollywood. What we will discuss is video games, whether it's on your console, PC, mobile, tablet, meeting the silver screen. But if you allow me, I want to do some audience participation so that we can just check where we are. By show of hands, audience, who here watches film or television? Oh, come on. Right. By show of hands, how many of you play video games? And this year, to the best of your knowledge, how many of you have watched a piece of television or film based on a video game? Exactly so. Thank goodness we're in the right place. Which leads me to start with a really good question. What do you do for a living? Helen, we'll start with you.
Well, unlike, I think, popular perception, I don't get to sit in my office and play Minecraft all day. But our team is responsible for growing and expanding the franchise, and more importantly, to be stewards of the brand. And you, Bryan?
Well, unlike Helen, I actually do get paid.
We're going to get into the backstory about this in a second. Please keep going, yeah.
No, I was literally saying I do get paid to play League of Legends because at Riot, they really, really expect you to understand the game and understand players.
Your background was you did 7 years at Netflix.
I did 7 years at Netflix, so I'm the film TV guy at Riot.
But you were not a video games guy at Netflix.
Exactly.
But then Riot were like, do you want to come and work for us?
Exactly. So I got a call from Shauna Spenley, who used to be at Netflix with me, and she was the new president of entertainment over at Riot, and was asking me if I would be interested in coming over, that they had very lofty ambitions about building the IP into film and television, and started having those conversations. And then she shared with me early cuts of Arcane. This is before it launched on Netflix, and I was literally blown away. I had nothing actually to do with it being on Netflix. It was just a weird coincidence that I had been at Netflix and then went to Riot, and then Riot sold it to Netflix. But I was so absolutely blown away by the quality of the storytelling and by the unbelievable direction and just the quality of the animation. I was like, wow, this is any indication of what you want to do within the scripted narrative space, like, count me in.
And Helen, you know, I get the role now, you know, Minecraft, and we'll get into how the universe has expanded. But in your career, you know, you've been on product and you've been in video games. In the early days, were you playing a lot of video games as part of your job?
I still get to play a lot of video games.
Okay, just to clarify.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this. On the Bloomberg Technology show, we have covered these big titles. I think Lucas was on stage last night talking about Super Mario Bros., right? But there are some of you, with respect to your age in this audience, that when you say Super Mario Bros., you guys think 1993 Super Mario Bros., right? Right? Thank you. Some of the stars in that film? Liars, all of you. Thank you. So here's the question. Which video games make for good film and television? And that's a broad question, but that is your job now to think about daily, Helen. And there's one piece of work you've got in particular, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I think gaming and entertainment go hand in hand. You know, when Minecraft started, it was a small independent game. It's evolved into a multi-billion-dollar franchise. We're really excited to expand into entertainment because we think of it as a great opportunity to reach new audiences and bring them into the franchise, even if they're not going to play the game.
There is a Minecraft movie. Well, there is a Minecraft movie.
There is.
Please expand.
It's under production right now. We're really excited to be working with Warner Brothers. We have the movie that's upcoming. We're working with Jason Momoa. It's a little bit delayed right now because of all of everything that's going on.
That's largely because of the pandemic.
Definitely.
Please continue.
But we're really excited because I think it's going to be just another expression of Minecraft that brings in a whole new audience into the franchise. We're hoping it's the start of many different entertainment offerings that we'll have with Minecraft.
Is the idea that whatever the end result that the movie looks like, that it's recognizable to kind of the generations of players that were playing Minecraft across different mediums?
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the challenges that we've had is, you know, Minecraft isn't known for the highest fidelity graphics. So as we were trying to imagine what the art style for this movie was, you know, I just saw some creative of that this week. I think we're really excited, and I think our fans are going to be excited.
Jason Momoa might not sign on if you pixelate his face. But you've been through this, well, I'm assuming, I mean, I'm not an actor, but you've been through this process with Arcane. So Helen's going through it now. You've published, essentially. What was your learning from that, taking League of Legends and doing that?
Yeah, you know, it was interesting, and there was a lot of nerves at Riot pre-launch of Arcane because, you know, it was highly anticipated. They'd spent 6 years making it. And there's an extremely sort of like obsession with excellence at the company. But they didn't know, obviously, how it was going to land until it's out there in the world. And the response was overwhelming. The player community just like lost their minds. And the way to answer your question, just one question ago, which is like, what do I think makes for a good adaptation? Yes. For me, it really all comes back to character. And that's what Christian and Alex, who created, you know, they were actually Rioters, internal guys. One was from the Champion team, one was the music team, and they actually created Arcane. But they focused the spotlight on a couple of champions, which we call them champions. They're characters, Jinx and Vi, really at the center of this thing. And they're not just like running around like blowing up things for the sake of blowing up things. Like there's reasons, like deep seated personal reasons.
There's a story.
There's a story, but the story didn't necessarily, you know, whereas ours is not a narrative game, right? Unlike Naughty Dog, like Last of Us, that's a narrative game. Like League of Legends is a 5-on-5 MOBA. It's a 45-minute fantasy basketball matchup, right? So, but we do have supporting literature and supporting website and short stories that we publish that to give you a sense more of like what these characters and champions are up to. But they had a lot of license to go create that story and create that narrative. But they stayed deeply authentic to who those champions were.
You're talking about development and production, so I'm going to take an opportunity to bring up this session's poll, which I'd love the audience to participate in. We can recap at the end. The story of the year, I guess, for both video games industry and entertainment broadly has been AI. So I just want to pose this question: which area of gaming will AI technologies have the most impact? Vote on it. We'll discuss it as a group at the end. But the question that I have for you, Helen, is what are the differences and similarities in development and production of a Minecraft movie versus development of a video game? Is it the same, or is there stark difference?
I actually think it's quite different. When we think about games, and especially how we develop Minecraft, you know, when you're building a game, you're putting something out there oftentimes when it's not fully done, especially a service game like Minecraft. And so, you know, we build our game with our community. We put something out there, they give us feedback, we continue to iterate on that. It's almost like if in TV you were to put out a pilot and kind of, you know, get community feedback and then decide where you want to take that series going forward. That's kind of how we think about game development for us. With the movie, you know, we really have to pick a story and a narrative that isn't going to be the only story of Minecraft, but is one that we hope is going to be fun and entertaining and get people excited about the potential of what else we could do in entertainment.
Brian, you brought this issue up about the response to Arcane, and it makes me think about expectation. So, you know, especially games like Minecraft or League of Legends, the players have very strong opinions, I have discovered in Reddit forums.
Yeah, to say the least.
What's the risk there?
For sure. Listen, like IP, like, you know, there's a lot of talk in Hollywood right now about IP, and,
yes.
and folks are chasing IP, and I understand why. It comes with a core evangelizing audience, and that's great. It can potentially give you a nice big leg up. It also comes with extremely high expectations and fandom and passion. And if you underdeliver, or you do something that's not authentic, or you do something that just is, you know, if the player community or the audience community rejects the organ, it's ugly, right? And frankly, you can do more harm than good. So that's why, like, just, you know, with my Riot hat on, like, we're so, like, we're not playing a volume game. We want to be so careful, so bespoke, make one incredible thing at a time to make sure that we're getting it right.
Minecraft, you know, you can either say, like the Super Mario Brothers, there was a 1993 film, and now there's a 2023 film, 22-23 film. You know, my question is whether you feel that Minecraft already has a legacy, or if you're a young franchise, because there are many players around the world that have been playing for a really long time, and so you are going across generations if you bring out a movie that you're trying to reach.
Minecraft's going to be 15 years old next year. And I think one of the things when I talk about being a steward of the brand, you know, we've really had to think about how we expand and grow over the last 15 years. And I think there's two things that are really important. One is, how do we nurture the community? The community has been such a strong force for our success, because we've built the game alongside them. And then how are we intentional about how we grow and expand? Bryan talked about authenticity. In the beginning days of Minecraft, we didn't have a lot of consumer products or licensed things that you could go buy out in the store. And as we tried to figure out how we grew that business, we didn't want to do it in an authentic way. We wanted to make sure that all of the toys that we put out, all of the t-shirts that we put out had custom designs, were of the quality that we care about inside Minecraft. And that meant that it took more time for us to get to where we are today. But that's been a big pillar of what we think is important in our brand.
As you develop the movie, are you taking input from the players of the game as you develop the game?
We're taking input from some of our creators who have been a large part of our success. So making sure that as they read the script, do they think it's authentic to our brand? We are taking time. I think it's been 8 years since we originally started the deal with Warner Brothers. So making sure that we take a lot of care, because this is our first foray into entertainment for Minecraft.
And is there a date for the movie, a broad target date for release?
There is, and I think we've got to wait and see what happens.
Just the three of us.
See what's going on and whether or not we stay on track, but that's the goal.
Okay, great. Bryan, Helen has taken the bulk of the easy questions. Valorant movie, when's it coming out?
Yeah, I'd love to watch that. Listen, Valorant is incredible, and it's a bit of a rocket ship from a game perspective. Yes. And I absolutely believe one day that we'll be building stuff.
Well, as part of your day job, you must be discussing it internally.
Oh, for sure. But Anna Donlan runs Valorant Studios from the game side. She's fantastic, and we talk all the time. And I think again, it's a really young game, so she wants to make sure that it's it's walk, then run, then sprint, and then one day we'll talk about film TV.
What I find interesting about the sort of digital world and the metaverse, we can talk about in a second, is there's a lot of merchandise out there. It's massive, Minecraft in particular. How do you think about merchandise as a kind of, I guess, is it a pillar alongside video game, movie merchandise, or does it take a back seat?
Oh, it absolutely doesn't take a back seat. And I think right now it's in a really forward seat. Just yesterday I was in the airport right behind a kid who's wearing his Minecraft backpack and his Minecraft shirt. It's just an expression, a way for our fans to express their love for the brand. I think for us what's been important is making sure that when you have hundreds of millions of people playing your game, you really have to have merchandise that caters to all of these different audiences within that. So how are we geographically relevant and making sure we're partnering with great brands in countries around the world? How are we making sure we think about demographics, not just kids, but the whole age range that plays our game? That's been important to us, and that's why you see us partnering with everything from high-end Burberry to making sure that our T-shirts are in Walmart and Target for all of the kids to buy.
And Arcane is a recent example, but was there any throughput to sales of merchandise based on taking a game to streaming or the silver screen?
Yeah, the way Riot thinks about it, for sure there's an absolute big consumer products muscle there, and Arcane was a nice big pulse point for them, and certainly the second season will be as well. And right now we're Worlds is in November in Korea, and so that's always a big high point of the year for our consumer products business. Worlds being the esports finals.
Yes.
But I think about that almost even more holistically. So it's, of course, it's consumer products, but we think about how do we make every day better to be a player? So it's consumer products. We really lean in and create incredible music at Riot, which the players love. So there's an entire ecosystem that there's in-game events. There's obviously there's digital goods as well. Right. So that's our job is
You've taken us to soundtrack. I think about a game I've been playing again recently, Cyberpunk, which has a pretty distinct soundtrack. If I go to Spotify, will I find Minecraft, themed music? Is that something that you guys think about proactively? Because in gameplay, you're there
I don't think you would find it today, but I think you would find it really soon.
Oh, so it's coming. When? We've talked a lot about pretty much one direction travel, video game to film and television. What about in reverse? There are examples of that, Hogwarts Legacy, which was great fun to play. But what do you both think that the movie industry or film and television industry can learn from the video games industry? What is it, Helen, that you think you do pretty well?
I think there's two things that have really been paramount to Minecraft's success. I talked about the community and how we've built the game alongside the community with their feedback. I think the second is just embracing the ecosystem around your IP. And for us, that's really the Minecraft creators who have helped make Minecraft as successful as it is. I think it was 2 years ago that YouTube announced we had 1 trillion views of Minecraft content on their platform. For us, then it becomes about how do we bring them back. Trillion, that's right, trillion.
Do you feel pressure now?
Yeah, that's impressive.
So then, it's our responsibility is how do we bring all of that energy and bring it back into the game?
You have sat on both sides of the table, literally. Netflix 7 years, and then over to Riot. Did you walk into Riot in Santa Monica and go, wow, or do you think I can change some things here based on my experience at Netflix?
I entered Riot with a lot to learn. I'd never been in the gaming industry, so I was super curious about the way they did things. And one of the things that is most remarkable to me about Riot, and listen, my vantage point of the gaming industry is truly just through my experience at Riot, right? So I'm talking about a one anecdote example here, but Riot, as I said earlier, is obsessed with excellence. So if you were asking me what's the lesson that I think Hollywood could take, Riot will, in Hollywood, you often are anchoring around dates. And so it's like, hey, we need this by Christmas of 26, or, and you're backing into things.
Yes.
Riot just would never do that in a million years. And I understand the reasons why you do it in film and TV, but they wouldn't, because they would immediately feel that it is sacrificing something from a quality perspective.
So this brings us back to the poll question, and we'll try and sort of tackle this AI in video games and film and television. If we can bring the poll back up, what is the biggest impact that AI technology will have? And the results, please. Development time. I'm not surprised by that. Think about Starfield. It took 7 years. I realized Minecraft has been out for a long time, and now it's in different iterations, right? But what is your take on that? Do you guys want to look at non-video game franchising of Minecraft and move faster? Or do you think AI will help you in doing that?
For our team, it's really not so much about the speed of development, and I know our players would hate that I said that, but it's really about the quality. And we want to make sure that, I have a hard time believing that a lot of storytelling and the creative aspects of building a game are going to be replaced. I think it is a human thing, and maybe AI can help augment that process, but I don't think it's going to replace the human element of storytelling.
The world that we dream up is a generative AI tool where it's text to world building, right? You say, I want to have this world with these features, bam, done. It doesn't take all the rendering and design. What's your attitude towards that as somebody that's also trying to take video game content to the other screen?
Yeah, listen, I mean, and we're in the early innings still, obviously, with AI. I think it's a great tool for creative folks. And my creative teams use it to inspire themselves or to do fun little projects if they want to imagine something really quickly. But the real heavy lifting of creative, I just fundamentally agree with Helen that I do believe humans will continue to drive that. And will there be efficiencies built into elements of production, whether in animation or otherwise, probably over time? I don't know exactly what that looks like, but...
We're running short on time, but as part of my research and getting ready for this discussion, I discovered Minecraft Ninja Turtles. So whether you pixelate Jason Momoa's face or not, you did cube up the little green guys. How big a part is that of the strategy, taking Minecraft and doing Minecraft XYZ?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of our strategy. There are so many communities and great IP that I know many of you have worked on. And, I think we have the opportunity with Minecraft to marry those audiences together, use it as an opportunity, whether it's Ninja Turtles, whether it's SpongeBob. These are all things that have manifested themselves into Minecraft, and those communities have found a way to be in our game and really enjoy the IP that they love.
And based on your time at Riot, are there properties you think, okay, we can JV here with someone?
Outside properties?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the focus. The focus is really turning that spotlight on areas of our map that we think are super special and our champions. So I think it's in world, in canon.
To finish, I want to ask you both, what was the first video game that you remember playing, Helen?
Duck Hunt.
Yeah. I had a ColecoVision.
Okay.
Which I probably got Christmas of '82 maybe, and Zaxxon. Does anyone here play Zaxxon? It was like you steered a plane. I don't even know, but yeah, that was an early ColecoVision game.
Brian Wright, Helen Chiang, we wanted to collide Silicon Valley and Hollywood. We collided video games and Hollywood. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers, thank
here
you.
in Hollywood.
Please welcome to the stage The Ringer founder and CEO Bill Simmons with Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw.
This is like a love seat. I don't know what's going on here.
It is a love seat. We didn't have pillows yesterday though, so we.
I like the pillows. Good ad.
Good. Thank you for doing this. I've given everyone else, for the most part, a softball to start with. I feel like you don't need that.
Yeah, can we talk about the weather?
So I'm just gonna jump right into your favorite subject.
I was going to give you a softball. I was surprised that you showed up today for work after the Dodgers collapsed in 3 games.
Well, you know,
I thought it would be like a guest host or something.
the good thing is I had this event last night as a distraction, so I
Oh,
did
good.
not I did not follow a moment. I came off stage. I forget if it was after Ari or after Donna. And I just saw a text message on one of my group chats about how the Dodgers gave up like 4 home runs in an inning, and I was thrilled that I did not see that.
It's a dark place to be.
Okay, well, so you started there. I'll go back at you.
Yeah.
When are you going to accept that the Lakers already have as many titles as the Celtics?
You count the Minnesota titles, though. It's unbelievable.
Of course you do.
There was like 5 of them. You didn't even have George Mikan's number retired. I never understood how that worked.
You know.
Listen, if you guys need to count titles won in other cities to make yourself feel better, that's fine. I'm okay. We won all of our titles in Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, and you've won how many since?
17.
No,
18.
but how many since 1990?
Oh, that's a low number. Yeah, that's I think it's 1 since 1986.
Yeah.
But man,
Well, you went to 96 because you didn't want to go all the way back to 90 because it's 1 since 90.
If you look from 56 to 86, domination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all jokes aside, for a while now in your business and podcasting, the conversation has sort of turned negative, right? There's a long time, a lot of enthusiasm,
Turned it negative. There's people.
Did
like
I
you as
turn
a
it negative, or
journalist
did it
talking about
happen?
Negative. No, it's fine.
Okay.
You have culpability a little bit.
Where did the industry go wrong, and why are you still very bullish on it?
I don't think the industry went wrong. I just feel like things move in phases, and you have little eras, right? So, you know, I started doing my podcast in 2007, all the way through when Serial hit. That was like phase 0, right? That's when people are like, wait, podcasts, what is that? How do I listen to it? And then, you know, it was great for me because I had one of the only big ones. Serial happened, and then people are like, podcasts, what's going on? And then you saw a lot of the heavily produced one. You saw bigger celebrities get in. And that went probably until, I would say, 2018. And then Spotify got involved and some other players, and the numbers went through the roof. Some things worked, some mistakes were made. And I think by 2023, I think people really have a sense of, like, what is this? What works? What doesn't work? And what the challenges are. And I think, I'm pretty bullish on it because I just think we're moving into a new era of wherever it's going. And the old era is definitely done. I mean, the deals are changing. I think the standards for what works for a podcast, I think people have a better idea. It's like you can't just be famous and have a podcast. That it can't be the 6th thing you're doing. It can't be something that you didn't spend any time on because, you know, it's not like YouTube or these other things that you could listen to. Yeah, I can watch 10 YouTube videos in a half hour as I'm watching television, right? Podcasts, you're trapped with the podcast. So people are making choices, and, you know, the quality of them, of those choices and the things you're picking has to hit a certain standard. I think everybody's starting to realize that. And the stuff that is elevating above is the stuff that's good. It's either the first or the second most important thing the person's doing. The Smartless podcast took off because it was during the pandemic and those guys couldn't work, and they threw themselves into it and created a good podcast. the Strike Force podcast that we just did, those 5 guys, they were going nuts because they didn't have their late night shows, and they were doing these Zooms during the week, and they decided, hey, this should be a podcast. So then all of a sudden it's a podcast, and they put real time into it. And I think I always laugh when, especially the last 8-9 years when people got into this, and I'm like, people think we have to compete against this person. This is like the number 6 thing they're doing. So I think people realize now that the stakes have changed a little.
How was your brief brush with the Daily Mail after your Royals comments?
Oh, man. Yeah, it turns out people know those two. Yeah, who knew? Look, I stand by everything I said.
When you're talking about the change that's happening or sort of recognition, is it just about focusing? I mean, focusing on quality seems sort of obvious, or having people have it be their main job.
It wasn't obvious 2 years ago. Like, think of the deals that you were reporting on with people who, either with production companies that had never done podcasts or with talent that had never done podcasts, and people just assuming it was going to translate. I think it's obvious, but I think there was like a 4-year stretch there when it was really weird to me, because I knew what it took to make a really good podcast, and we'd been in that business dating back from Grantland, trying to elevate other people's podcasts, and then at The Ringer, and then we got to Spotify. And there's a lot of time and TLC that goes into it. And it's not one of those things where it's like, all right, you now have a podcast, turn it on and it will succeed. Like, celebrity doesn't matter with podcasts. What matters is, what's your point of view? Are you consistent? Do you have a piece of turf that you're trying to grab? Even when we talked about Matt's podcast, which was, almost 2 years ago, we put real thought into like, what should this be? Who are we going after? And the more we talked about it, it's like, we want an audience to be on the move. The podcast has to be probably 30 minutes or less. It's one topic. It feels like Matt's newsletter. And we want to like elevate the discussion around something and the nuances in it, and be this repeatable thing that's part of somebody's life. I don't think most people put thought into the podcast like that, but now you're starting to see it, I think, a little bit more.
One thing that I don't think people realize with podcasting is, and to your point earlier, most shows have a really small audience.
Oh, yeah.
For your barometer, like, what is the audience size that you consider a hit show?
You're going to hate this answer, but I try not to look at the audiences. To me, I feel like, does the pod stand out? I have an awesome inner circle, and they'll tell me if something's doing bad. But for the most part, like, I honestly, genuinely don't know what Matt's audience is, for example. I don't know what, like, Derek Thompson's audience is. But I know that those guys have a piece of turf that matters for what they're trying to do. And if there's some big topic or some important topic, I'm going to care what they think. So I think you have to look at it that way. You have to look at, like, how does this stand out? Because you're competing, there's 3 million podcasts plus 17 million white noise podcasts. So there's 20 million podcasts out there that you're competing against. But how do you stand out? How are you different? And if you're competing against a bunch of people in the same space, why are people going to listen to you instead of those other people? That's how we think about it.
If you're not, you may not know how many people are listening to Matt or Derek. I assume you know how many people are listening to your show.
I actually don't know the exact number, but I know it's the biggest it's been, which I think is hilarious because I'm completely washed up. I don't know how I pulled that off. This is really like a gravy train time for me. I think it reminds me a lot of what the internet was like in the late 2000s, because I'm going to say around like 2007, the blogs really started to go nuts, right? There was just a million people. Everyone had a blog. Everybody was writing. Everybody was online. And there was 2 years there where I think the common feeling was blogs are going to win. Shorter, faster, immediate. And I just didn't feel like that was the case. I still had the biggest column at ESPN.com. And I was like, my column's growing. Like, I know that's not true. And there were other people I read, and I knew, like, I'm still reading that person, and they're not writing that way. And I think what eventually happened is there's so much noise, and there's so many bylines, and so many takes, and so many writers that people kind of gravitate toward the trusted people, the bigger people, the people they know, the best stuff. So in a weird way, the more podcasts that there are, the better it is for the bigger podcasts, because there's too many choices. They're like, oh, well, I know that one.
How much harder does that make it for a new one to break through?
I think it's pretty easy. Like, look at the Kelseys. Did you know the Kelseys had a podcast 2 months ago?
I don't think so.
I don't think I did either. And now it's one of the biggest podcasts. I still feel like if it's a personality or if it's an angle or a topic, I think that's going to win. I think the thing that's changed the most, I think, over the last 5 years, and especially now we're more involved in the monetization side, it's just really hard to, the 10 episode, 12 episode, the stuff that...
The serials.
Based on the serial model of, oh, this is how to do it, it's really hard to sell unless you can have an awesome season 1 and then it leads to season 2. Because one of the reasons that The Ringer has had so much success from an advertising standpoint, even back when we were on our own, is because we can sell 6, 9, 12 months ahead. Like, we know, like, basketball starting in 2 weeks. Like, guess what? I'm going to be talking about basketball on my pod. So you have somebody like State Farm, they're figuring out how to spend their money in January, or February, March. It's like, well, Bill he's going to do basketball in October.
And they have a lot of basketball relationships.
Yeah.
And,
so we're making those deals 6, 7 months ahead of time. If you have something that you spent 2 years on, it can be awesome. And you go in and you pitch that to a CMO or you pitch that to a brand, you're still having to explain what it is. It's like Lucas has this new podcast. It's a narrative pod about how the Dodgers just choke every year unless there's a pandemic season. And it's going to be, and he's going to talk to all these people, and they're still going to be like, well, what does it sound like? I want to hear it. And unless they hear it and they know what it is, it's just hard to get money. So that's why Serial season 2, season 3, slow burn, some of the old school ones, they can keep doing those now because people know what it is.
it's known, yeah.
Yeah, but those are really, I really respect those.
They're also
pods.
expensive to make.
They're really expensive. The people that do them, the producers are like incredibly talented, and they're really hard. They take like a year. So if you're deciding if you're going to invest that kind of time, can we make the money back?
Yeah.
And I know Spotify, we look at stuff now, and we're not the only company like that with the MGs, and they want to make more money than they spend. Like, it's not rocket science. It's 2023, but that's where we've landed. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. How much money does The Ringer make now?
A healthy amount. Yeah, healthy.
More.
You guys love trying to get figures and
Yeah,
downloads.
that's what we do.
I know. We're doing...
You're profitable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've been profitable since 2016, but I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with Spotify, a lot of the stuff that Lee Brown spearheaded, the head of sales, that I just think from an ad tech standpoint, that's the part that if you're betting on Spotify long term, like the ad tech stuff that we're building is going to be a huge differentiator. I'm not just saying that like Kool-Aid drinker. Like, Spotify is not perfect. I'll be the first one to admit it, but what they're trying to figure out with the ad sales side is something that, if you think podcast started 07, 08 range, we're now year 15, and we still didn't have any of the technology or sales expertise for this stuff. And it was very similar to the internet, actually, where a lot of people in the early wave of sales for pods were people that kind of came from other places. Like when the internet started, you'd have people running like Newspaper X, their website, or some really good content website, and it was somebody who probably failed somewhere else. And now it's like these people that are building their way up and have worked, and they understand it, and they've been in the industry for years, and they have connections. So I think from that end, it's that everything's elevating.
Yeah. You mentioned Derek and Matt's pods, which I would say for your business are sort of different from what you're known for, right? You're sort of sports, pop culture, but you've been adding little things on. How are you thinking about expanding the Ringer universe and how it all ties together?
Yeah, it's passion points. So I think for us, sports and culture, that was always the DNA dating back to Grantland. And then how can you add little things that seem in the general vein? We've always tried to be like the person you're sitting next to at the bar who's fun to talk to and knows shit. And you're like, oh man, that was really fun to sit next to that person on the train, and they knew this and this and this. I think growing forward for us, there's a bunch of things that pop up. Like, there's player podcast stuff. That's been a little bit of movement now, trying to decide what's real and what's not real. I actually think the social media elements of those pods are better than the actual pods.
Yeah, I watch a lot of clips on Instagram. I don't actually listen to any of those.
And I think that's most people, where they listen to they watch a 70-second clip of them. It's for us, it's more like you keep learning what not to do. And you know, that stuff's pretty obvious. Like, don't, you know, this league wants to do a podcast deal and produce pods, and it's like, well, that's probably, what's that mean? So does that mean we can't talk about the league in the same way? Do we have to have the commissioner on? And so it's more, we try to keep a little bit of a distance, so we have a little bit of a, you know, reporting personality version of it versus like feeling like we're embedded with somebody. But you know, we're always looking for talent. I think we found more talent dating back to Grantland than anybody. And we've had the ability to keep elevating people, and that's what still is the most exciting piece to me, is trying to find something that either it's coming to the cusp or maybe there's something here and figuring out like how to bring it to the next level.
I'm curious, you talked about a lot of the style of your shows or the person you're sitting next to interesting. Like, you, for a lot of your career, have been sort of the voice of the casual, or not the casual, but like the average sports fan.
Right.
Has that gotten harder as you've gotten richer?
Oh, yeah. And older. No, there's no question. I mean, I used to, in my 20s, like I was that guy, and I'm twice as old as I was in 1998 or whatever. I still give a shit. And, you know, it's been really instructive to me, the people when I was growing up or when I was a young adult, the people that did well, and you could kind of always tell who checked out, you know, or who didn't care about sports in the same way or didn't follow it the same way. And it started to show up in their writing or the way they talked about it. And I made a decision a long time ago. Like, the moment I felt like that was happening to me, I'm out. And if you listen to my pod and you listen to the stuff we do, like, I still give a shit. Like, I still watch football. My wife hates it. I watch football. I'm figuring out my multi-view on Sunday Ticket at 9:58, trying to figure out what 4 games I'm going to get. And I watch football for 10 hours or 11 hours, whatever it is, and I talk to Sal about it. I still watch NBA. I watch fourth quarters in the morning. Like, I obviously watch a shitload of movies and TV.
Yeah.
And
you do fewer interviews, and you switch up.
Did fewer interviews, yeah. But that's more of a COVID thing. We had this run in 2018-19 range when we had all these celebrities coming in. It was great because you could talk like this. Zoom sucks. It's just not the same, and you feel like you're getting them. You're like the third of the 5 interviews they're doing that day, and I just don't like it. So I've kind of phased those out a little bit.
Yeah, the two things, it feels like you do fewer interviews on the podcast, and the other thing I get from you is I don't sense that you love the management side of your job.
What do you mean? Which part?
Which part? I don't know.
They just gave me more jobs.
Well, I would say the sense I get is
I'm running monetization now for them. That's
I'm not sure. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
But it feels like there's a little more of a buffer between you and your staff than there used to be.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And you went through a rather contentious unionization effort.
Are there non-contentious unionization efforts? Can you point me to one?
I'm not. If my colleague Josh Idelson were here, he probably could help out because he's a labor expert.
I think the biggest obstacle was COVID, and it really changed office culture in a bunch of different ways. We're not the only business trying to figure that out. Everyone I talk to who runs anything, it's a new frontier, and in some ways it's better. Like, I go to the office probably once, twice a week max. I feel like I'm more productive on my own, doing stuff, like Zoom was a huge game changer, the phone calls.
But you just said you hate Zoom.
Huh?
You just said you.
I like it with my staff. I just don't want, I don't want to interview Matt Damon on Zoom. But I think the office culture thing is something we have to all figure out, because I know for us, we have a lot of people in good positions for us now that are people that, you know, started out young and hungry and worked their way up, and I feel like they learned stuff from us, and now they have better jobs. And I haven't figured out the part of how do you have the full kind of office culture with the mentoring that you need to have if people aren't in every day. And I'm not one of those, everybody's got to be in every day, because I think the world's different, and it should be. But from a mentor standpoint, I do worry about that. Like who is the next wave of young people that move into bigger positions if they're not learning day-to-day stuff? And unless you've worked in the right kind of office, like, there's so much give and take, and there's so much like, hey, hop in my office for 20 minutes, or hey, we're about to talk about that at lunch, why don't you come with us? And all that stuff's now gone. So I worry about where that goes, not just for us, but for everybody.
Yeah. I want to talk for a little bit about sports documentaries, just because you were instrumental in 30 for 30, which is, I think one of my favorite things that's ever been made, certainly in the sports world. It ushered in this huge boom in sports documentaries.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there are now too many of them?
Yes. And also, a lot of the ideas have been done, and now we're moving into this era where to get a good idea done, you have to partner with
the athlete, and you need the access, and it.
Beckham was the best possible version of how that goes.
It was great.
Yeah, I really liked the first two parts. Last two might have been one part potentially, but I was really into it, and I didn't know a lot of his story, and I liked his interview, and I liked how they did it, and I thought it was really good. And I think so we'll still have those, but Beckham's also super famous and was also married to somebody who's super famous. And my wife like really cared about their relationship as part of the doc. So you're getting like everybody, even people who don't like soccer. I really worry. I could feel, I've said this before, but I could feel it happening near the end of it, 30 for 30 when I was there, when I had this idea about the Orlando Magic and the Shaq Penny era that I really wanted to do as a documentary. I laid it out. We had to convince the NBA to do it because it was like kind of a small market team falling apart, and they were a little skittish on it. And they finally gave the green light. It was like, this is great. This documentary is going to be awesome. And Shaq and Penny wouldn't do it unless they were EPs. And then we had to make a decision. Well, do we still want to do it if they're involved? And we made the decision, yes. And it was good, but I think it would have been better if, we just did it. And I remember that moment like, man, this is shifting now. The Last Dance is probably the best example of how that would go, right? Because they had the best possible footage. They got great interviews with Jordan. Because he was in it, they got interviews with everybody else, and they got an incredible director. But I also think there's been a lot of bad versions of The Last Dance.
Like what?
I'm not going to say. But we have this Vince McMahon documentary that we've been working on for 3 years, I think has a chance to be really great. I really think it has a chance to be the best one I've been involved with. And I'll be interested to see what people think about that one, because it was a lot of time, and it was one where Netflix still has final cut of it, and it's a little more old school, like what the 30 for 30 model was. And I think it has a chance to be really special.
Does Vince get to see it before it comes out?
Not the giving notes on the final cut part.
He gets to see it, but he doesn't get to change anything.
I think they get to look at clips, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because your former home, you're a sports media obsessive. If you were Bob Iger, what would you do with ESPN?
I would sell it.
To who?
I would sell it to Apple, and Apple could take their entire budget for 2 episodes of the morning show and pay for ESPN, and I think that makes a shitload of sense. They could be like, you know what, maybe we don't need to launch a rocket in outer space in episode 1. We'll just buy ESPN instead. And that'll be it.
Related question, regional sports networks. There's a lot of, it's a business that seems to be collapsing. Leagues have sort of toyed around with, should we do something ourselves? Some teams are doing like local TV and streaming. How do you see that shaking out?
So I don't think I'm right on this, but my instincts keep telling me this is what's going to happen. Because if you remember the WWE, they launched their own network that had their own content and had their own pay-per-views. And it was kind of a smart, bold, ahead of its time move. And then they pivoted at the perfect time, and they sold their content to, what was it, Peacock.
Yeah.
And that was really smart, too, because they were able to leverage that number as high as possible. So they always zagged where the money was and when the opportunity was. I think the opportunity for the NBA with the local teams would be to own all that themselves and own League Pass themselves and do it in a way that they could just basically own all of it. And I don't know if they'll do that or they'll have the balls to do it, but they, with the media rights deal that they're going to get from the national games, they're going to make so much money, and the players are going to be paid so much money. Like, we're going to have guys making $75, $80 million a year. So if there was ever a time for them to kind of bet on themselves, that's the league to do it. I think what the MLS did was really interesting with what they did with Apple and giving Messi a stake. Then, of course, Messi gets hurt. But but I think people are going to think outside the box more. That old model feels like don't you feel like it's kind of dying?
Yeah, I think regional sports networks have like a few hundred hours of programming a year, and that's about
and then
it.
You
that's
have
relevant.
To fill all the other hours,
yeah.
you know, and then you have to and you're on all the time.
It's crazy.
I watch the Lakers network sometimes, and by watch, I mean hate watch. And I love when all the shows they have where they're just like, all right, today it's a 3-hour breakdown of Michael Cooper. And it's like 30 for 30, Michael Cooper. By the way, he was great. Michael Cooper killed us in today's 7. But it's just, you know, people just want the games. I think ESPN Plus realized that. You go to ESPN Plus, remember where they were making all those shows?
Yeah.
It's like, who are these shows for? And now it's like, you know what people go to ESPN Plus for? I go to watch Holy Cross play Fordham on Saturday at 10 in the morning. And I go to watch basically any game that exists, they have it. And that's what it is. So, like, why wouldn't the NBA have that?
I don't know. Okay, last question, because they'll kill me for going over. You were already talking about it back there. What's your finals prediction?
My finals prediction?
Yeah, we're going to give you an early tease before your pod.
I'm thinking about non-ironically picking the Celtics and the Lakers. And I'm going to do it, and all the Laker fans will be, you're just doing that to spite us. And I'm like, I actually like being right more than I hate the Lakers. I think the Lakers are going to be really good. So it's between Lakers and Nuggets. I was going to figure it out over the weekend, but I think Boston in the East. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Celtic fan. There's been years when I was like, there's no way. This year, I think the team's really good. Unfortunately, we might have a bad coach, so we're going to learn over the next 6.
Second row Joe.
He brought Drew Holiday off the bench in the first exhibition game, and my dad and I were like, oh, my God, he doesn't get it. But I would probably say Celtics, Lakers, or Celtics, Nuggets. I've narrowed it down to that.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Amazon Music Global Head of Content and Artist Marketing, Curtis Postel, and rapper and musician Lola Brooke with Bloomberg's Shartia Brantley.
All right, so we feed off of energy. Good afternoon. All right, yes. This is an exciting moment. I am just delighted to be here with Curtis and Lola today. So let's just dive right in. Curtis, I'll start with you. Okay. Tell us about Amazon Music. What do you want people to know about the work you're producing there?
Okay, so what I really want people to know about Amazon Music is that we're not just a streaming service. We have the same 100 million songs that other companies do, but we are really in the business of bringing artists closer to their fans and bringing fans closer to artists. I'm the global head of content and artist marketing, and content plays such a big job in artist careers now. I wanted to really focus on creating opportunities that artists could take and make their own. We've created several different, call them shows, on Twitch, on Prime Video. We have a show, Amazon Music Live, that airs weekly after Thursday Night Football, where we curated. We've been able to bring some of the biggest artists in the business and give them this opportunity to promote their new music. So we really want to be more in the artist business and making sure that artists get connected to their fans in a way that they wouldn't usually have the opportunity to do.
Mm-hmm. So then how do you go about identifying new talent and supporting them?
Okay, so when I was on the other side in the recorded music business, I've been doing this a long time, there's typically a small group of people, usually the artist manager, and a few people at the label, and I have a philosophy about this, right? So it's harder than ever to break artists or for artists to find opportunities. And the way you really break artists is, it used to be you could get one thing you weren't supposed to get. Like, so for example, I worked with Sam Smith, and the one thing that he was able to get that he wasn't supposed to have was Saturday Night Live, right? The same thing with Kendrick Lamar. The one thing that he was supposed to get that, you know, that he wasn't supposed to get that we were able to get for him was the cover of XXL. And so we created a program called Breakthrough in 2020 that what we want to do is be able to make those things more accessible to artists, those things that they're not supposed to get, we want to be able to help them get. So I tend to think in venue size. We really want to work with artists that see themselves in arenas and stadiums. So that's kind of how I think about and how we think about artists. We want to identify artists early, talent early, and just be with them, you know, from the beginning all the way through them breaking.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lola, I want to bring you in. Can you just tell us about how you launched your career?
Okay, so honestly, I woke up, I was raised, I'm not going to say I just woke up and thought about being an artist for sure, but it kind of just happened that way because my entire life. So, only child, mom, single parent, dad's not around, but I still had like a bond with my dad, so I was lonely. Didn't have no one to really speak to, so I used the music platform to express myself. And what's so crazy about it is that my fans actually pushed me to do it. Because for me, it was just therapeutic. It was a hobby. I showcased it to the world, and then I got good feedback from it, so that was my push. So the People's was my push, for sure.
Well, let's talk about, you are a breakthrough artist for 2023.
That's right.
Tell us about that experience and the support you're receiving.
It's amazing. As a young artist coming up, it feels good to feel loved, and it feels good to know that something that you have a passion for is actually getting rewarded. And Amazon Music been supporting me. It's the little things that they do. I just feel so loved. And I always practice self-love for sure. But I'm telling you, when an artist get on the platform and they feel love from the people that make this all happen, it feels so great.
Mm.
Yeah, we've been able to connect. So one of the things about Amazon and Amazon Music is that there's a lot of opportunity, right, across several different business units. So Lola's done some work with Amazon Studios. She's done some work with Amazon Fashion. You know, she was a big part of our Hip Hop 50 campaign.
Yes.
Performed at our City Sessions
Yes.
live stream. Remember, like she opened for Method Man and Redman.
It was,
right?
it's so much.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the 50th anniversary of hip hop, right? And you're part of the new generation.
Yes.
So what do you hope your contribution will be for the next 50?
Just staying myself. And Amazon has helped me to connect more with my identity and not change anything about myself. I just love the fact that I can be an artist and still be my personal self, Shanice, too, as well. So it's not just Lola Brooke. I get to be Shanice as well.
I was doing my research on you, and I came across an event earlier this year at the Apollo with Lil' Kim when she brought you out. And I also saw a special moment with you and Angie Martinez at a barbecue performance this summer. And what struck me was just the sense of sisterhood and support.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Okay, so I'm the only child. I'm the only child. So coming into this game, it feels like a weight off my back when I have older women that's been paving the way for me to actually open arms for me. I was on the stage at Apollo, first time ever. Kim brought me there. And I'm performing, and I just could not stop thinking about her in the place, Apollo. I was like, oh my God. I'm looking, I'm like, okay, this is it. Oh, snap, this is the stage. I'm on stage. I was just so amazed and so grateful and blessed that I got to touch that stage from a legendary artist, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And support is so key. So, Curtis, what advice are you giving to Lola and other breakthrough artists participating in the program?
I think, okay, so there's a lot of advice, right? But I think the key thing for new artists, for developing artists, is that they focus on their broader brand. You know, there's so many different opportunities, from merch to, you know, to fashion. I want to make sure that you understand that, you know, music is the fuel that powers everything else.
It's
right?
a tree and then it branches
Exactly.
off.
So we learned that from, you know, we learned that from Diddy, right?
Yeah.
From Love. We learned that from Love. We learned that from J-Lo. Like, you know, music is really the fuel that powers everything else. So that's my key advice.
Okay. So, dear audience, I want you to know that Lola will be performing later today. So, super excited about Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, you definitely have to stick around. But before we go, I mean, you're having a breakthrough year, an amazing year. I saw your cipher at the BET Awards, how you opened that up. It was fire. It was fire.
Thank you.
So, what's next for you in the next 6 to 12 months?
I heard
What are you up to?
music yesterday through the
Oh,
door. I
yeah.
was just there listening through the door.
You love it?
I love it.
Oh, thank you so much.
She love it, y'all. It was great.
What everyone could look forward to in the next 6 to 12 months is just me putting out a project and new visuals for sure, touring. I'm just catering to the audience. I'm catering to my fans and just enjoying it as being a breakthrough artist of 2023 for Amazon Music.
That's right. And she's got you got some fashion stuff coming.
Oh yeah, we got some fashion stuff.
There's some things that, you know, that Amazon Music is doing with her.
Yes.
Yeah. So
It's
look
a
forward to
lot.
all of that.
I love it here.
Well, I wish you continued success in everything that you do. Thank you both so much. We must leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Brad Stone.
Hey, Brad.
This is going to be, I guarantee, one of the strangest experiences here at Screentime, so I need to give you a little bit of context. Last April, an anonymous creator calling himself Ghostwriter posted a song online called Heart on My Sleeve. Drake and The Weeknd appeared to perform the original lyrics, but their voices were actually generated by AI. Well, of course, their music label didn't like it. Platforms like TikTok and Spotify and Apple Music tried to remove the song, but fans loved it and they reposted it. And it really started a conversation about AI in music in Hollywood. Should AI be used to mimic the voices or appearances of established stars? How should original performers be compensated? And how do we reward extraordinary work like Heart on My Sleeve when it was partly generated by an algorithm? Well, a couple of weeks ago, I reached out to Ghostwriter over social media and asked if he wanted to come speak at Screentime. And to my absolute astonishment, he replied, and he said yes, but he asked us to preserve his anonymity and to protect his optimistic message about the use of AI in music. So please welcome to the stage, in costume and with his voice distorted, the songwriter and producer Ghostwriter. All right. It's hot here in LA. Does that thing breathe?
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
All right. It's the first time I've interviewed a ghost. It's good to see you in person.
Sure.
We just heard a little bit of Heart on My Sleeve. You released another song, Whiplash, with the voices of Travis Scott and 21 Savage. But tell us what we're listening to. How much of this is you and how much is AI?
Good question. So, the entire song is written, produced, performed by me. The only thing that's AI generated is a vocal filter. So it's no different than adding auto-tune over vocals or anything like that.
Yeah. Tell us what goes into creating the AI-generated voices. I mean, I presume that you are not using ChatGPT to, and maybe you won't want to discuss the specific tools, but how much do you have to train an algorithm or a voice filter to get this extraordinary effect?
I mean, it depends. So you're training it off of material that contains voices, and there's different tools out there. So I mean, it varies.
Yeah. Well, let's take a step back and tell us, how this this wild story started. How did you decide to do Heart on My Sleeve and become ghostwriter?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a songwriter and producer. I've been my whole life. And a few years ago, when I started finding some success and getting into rooms with other writers, just having conversations about how much money people are making off of their songs, and just started realizing that the business of songwriting's off. Songwriters these days make next to nothing, even when they make a hit song. So as a songwriter who enjoys nothing more than to be creative, I started thinking, is there a way that I can create another revenue stream? And the idea that I initially had, which was about 2 years ago, was to create this character, ghostwriter, where I would put out music that I wrote with the intentions of sounding like certain artists, put it on social media and let people guess who it was supposed to be. And then this tech came out, and it all sort of clicked.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about some of the choices you made and the reaction to it. But, as I mentioned, Universal Music Group really tried to eliminate the song from the internet, and, fans reposted it. You can find it fairly easily on most social networks today, on YouTube and TikTok. What does that, I guess, tell us? One, about how hard the industry is trying to remove AI-generated songs, and then just the practicality of it.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I just want to clarify that the industry isn't necessarily against AI in music. In fact, all the labels are investing and working on projects that involve using AI for music, including voice filters. And I think they learned their lesson with Napster. They realized you can't fight these things. You have to step up and meet the moment. It's where the intention goes, the money goes. And like you mentioned, I mean, we posted Heart on My Sleeve, and it was taken down, and we haven't reposted it. But I mean, you can find it anywhere you look. Just the other day, I was out driving around my area, and someone pulled up in a car next to me, and they were playing the song. So, I mean, once the genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah, and Whiplash. I mean, it looked like you posted it to your TikTok account, and then it just took off from there.
Yeah. So, Heart on My Sleeve was an experiment, right? So, just wanted to see what would happen if we put something out and start a conversation around, AI and music, and we uploaded that to DSPs, and it was taken down, and for Whiplash, we just uploaded it to socials. We probably won't be, you won't be uploading to DSPs again unless it's a collaboration with the talent. But it was, it was an experiment to show that the demand is there.
Right. Yeah. And now there's been some criticism of the experiment. Some people say you're kind of opening the door to something kind of ugly. AI that can mimic an established artist and maybe even end up supplanting them. So how do you respond to some of the criticism?
Yeah, I mean, when anything new comes to be, no one really knows how to take it. I mean, there would be no Spotify without Napster. So I say that I think there's a lot of value here. When you look back at the advent of hip hop and people started sampling, there was an outcry of thievery. In fact, when De La Soul sampled the Turtles in their album, I found a quote online where the lead singer of the Turtles told the LA Times that sampling is just a longer term for thievery. And anyone that honestly believes that sampling is in any way creative has never done anything creative in their life. I mean, fast forward decades now, I think most of us in the room might disagree with that. And now, artists' estates love nothing more than to be sampled or interpolated in the next big hit. It takes time to acclimate, to figure it out, to build the business model. And then once that happens, it'll find its place. I think this will be no different.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I understand what you're saying, that this follows in a kind of long musical tradition. But, sampling is borrowing, their work, their words, their humanity from their song, and then obviously compensating them. I mean, this has the potential to, replace an artist, put words in their mouth that they didn't say. And I hear you kind of saying that the project is intended to work towards A, consent, and B, fair compensation to artists. But, this is the internet. And as you mentioned, UMG is having problems putting these two songs back in the bottle. So how do we ensure that this can be contained?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can ensure that it can be contained, but, the way I see it eventually taking place is that I think there's going to become an ecosystem where talent can license their voices. And I think they'll be able to license those with, agreements around monetary splits as well as agreements around permissions, like how the voices are used. Like, for example, artist X says, I'll license my voice, but I want 50% of the money, like Brian said. Yeah. But it can't be used for, political speech or hate speech.
Well, in fact, Grimes put some of those guardrails around it.
Yeah, but I mean, we needed, the tech needs to come up.
Right.
It's possible to create tech that does that operates with those licenses and those permissions, right? And it's really difficult. You're talking about policing, right? How do we police illegal AI? I think at one point we'll get there, but the first step is, it's the Pareto rule, 80-20 rule, right? You got to focus on the 20% of this AI music that's let's be real, that's going to produce money, right? Because that's what the industry needs to thrive. So I think the first step is going to be creating an official, centralized place where voices can be licensed, where they can be controlled how they're used, and where they can be tagged as legal. And then when they're distributed to social media or to DSPs, they know that this is legal AI, right? It's like when you're selling tickets to a concert, you're not giving tickets away to everyone that didn't pay. You give them to the people that paid to come to the concert. So I think that's where it's going to start.
I mean, it does seem like a worthwhile proposition, but you're talking about giving artists control, asking for their consent. And I just want to note that that's not what you did when you put out these two songs. And I saw you reach out to Travis Scott, presume that he didn't call you right back. But I guess why didn't, if this is the system that you think should be established, why didn't you go and ask The Weeknd or Drake or other artists to take their voices?
Yeah. Well, I don't have Drake's phone number, but let me know if you get it. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Everything has to start somewhere, and it's always rough when you kick it off. There was a lot of things that were happening around AI and voice filters, more sort of meme-centric stuff and content on social media. So I mean, it was already, the cat was out the bag. But what I believe needed to happen is there needed to be an example of how this can be used, in fashion. It can be monetized, right? And I see AI music when done. I mean, you're talking about using it for hate speech or using it for political speech, and obviously, we need to figure that out, and that's what I was touching on earlier. But I see AI music as a form of fan fiction. UGC. When YouTube was brand new, labels and artists were doing everything they could to take down UGC with copyright strikes. Everything you try to post, they take it down. Now, 90% of music marketing efforts are centered around encouraging UGC.
Right. Well, let me just push back on that, and I'm told you should put the mic a little bit closer to your mouth to get the wonderful effect of the voice disguiser. But it almost seems like songs are so
that's great.
Songs are so personal, right? It almost seems like fan fiction, but for memoirs almost, right? And in the sake of Heart on My Sleeve, you've got, I guess it's The Weeknd, rapping about an ex-girlfriend. Now, of course, that's characteristic maybe of his work, but boy, it's quite can be quite personal.
You make a good point. So, as a songwriter, songwriters are chameleons. We're also, massive fans and consumers of music, right? So, professionally, as songwriters, we study artists. We study what they write about, how they deliver their vocals, all these things, because we write the songs for them. So songwriters are like chameleons, and fans, like super fans, are the same way. So yeah, I mean, it is in a way a tribute to those artists, but I think the way this is going to go is that and we've always done this since the beginning. I've always labeled every song we put out as AI. Never tried to pass it off as Drake, never tried to pass it off as The Weeknd or any of that. And that's where I think this sits. There's a space for that fan fiction content that you see to exist. It's tribute and it's fun. I mean, ultimately, consumers want great music, and they're going to find it.
Let's talk briefly about this subplot with the Grammys. You submitted Heart on My Sleeve. The CEO of the Recording Academy said it qualified, and then it didn't qualify, and then yesterday in Billboard, you suggested that it did. But let's put all that aside, because I think we probably both agree it's probably not going to win Song of the Year, as great as it is. Why is it an important conversation to have about recognizing songs that have AI as an element?
You have to stomp on my dreams. Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, why did you initiate this conversation about Grammy recognition?
Because I want to highlight the fact that, beyond being the two things I mentioned already, so one being an opportunity for artists to sort of scale monetization, right, by licensing their voices. Two being a marketing tool when we talk about the UGC lane. Three, I want people to understand that AI is a creative tool. I think that vocal filters are the same to vocalists as synthesizers were to key players. It's a tool that allows us to expand the way we express ourselves. And just like Heart on My Sleeve, that piece of work was 100% human created and performed. This is just a tool. It's like throwing an autotune. I challenge you to find a single song that's up for a Grammy right now that doesn't have autotune. So, sorry, I'll
Okay, we're running out of time, so let me cycle through a couple of quick questions. There were 4 senators that proposed a bill today in the Senate called, I think, what's called the Stop Fakes Act, that basically would make it, illegal to appropriate the voice or the likeness of an established artist without their consent. Do you support it, and is it practical?
Sorry, what's that?
Do you support such a bill, and is it practical?
I really can't speak to it. I haven't read the bill. However, I assume that this is probably going to be handled in the market before it's handled by policy. But yeah, I mean, I think we're moving towards having the infrastructure, the system, the understanding, the business model, where artists, once we figure all that out, are going to feel comfortable at licensing their voices and scaling. I mean, imagine like karaoke sung in the artist's voice.
Yeah.
Birthday wishes, for your kid and from their favorite artist. Rather than going on Cameo, which requires the artist to actually, sit down for 5 minutes or whatever and record the video for you. All that can be, punched in with a prompt.
Right. So we talked about AI mimicking the voices of artists. Like, how close do you think we are to doing much more, to taking over some of the responsibilities that you have as a songwriter and a producer?
What do you mean, like AI writing songs?
Sure.
I don't think we're that close. And who knows? I mean, one day we might get there, and I think by then we'll probably have a lot of this figured out, hopefully. But, on the artist side, we have to remember that these attachments, these fan attachments, they're human attachments, you know. I would argue that Taylor Swift's latest album wasn't her best that she's done. I love Taylor Swift. I'm a huge Swiftie, but I think there's other albums that I think were better. But her fans have come along a journey with her. She's amazing in engaging with them, making them feel valued, feel connected, and that's why her success continues to grow. You know, and you know, Lil Durk is the biggest rapper in the world right now because of his story. You know, and you can't generate that.
Okay, last question, Ghostwriter. Why is your anonymity so important to you? Why not rip that mask right off here and give us a genuine screen time moment?
Fair question. Honestly, later. Honestly, this is bigger than me or who I am. You know, this is everything that I do is about, you know, sparking moments of thought and trying to move this forward. You know, I believe in not just in music, but, you know, across all industries and elsewhere, that AI is a big part of our future. You know, and we need to move that conversation forward, and we need to prepare, you know, while we have the time. So, you know, if I could be a part of that, you know, part of pushing that forward, you know, that's amazing for me, and it's not about who I am, and it's not about the recognition, it's not about tainting the mission with, you know, with me. Yeah.
All right, Ghostwriter, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I came in with my ex like Selena, the flex, ain't bumping Justin Bieber, but a fever ain't left. She knows.
Please welcome to the stage CAA Chairman and CEO Brian Lourd with Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw.
Okay, we made it. Last session of the day. We got a packed house.
I didn't know I could opt into a mask.
You can wear whatever you want to wear.
Thank you.
At least in this case, you have named yourself. It's a little bit different. If you want to show up, fashion is optional.
Well, I might not really be me. You know, I could be someone else. That's
You're an artificially generated.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we would have had a packed house for you no matter what. I think it's even more packed because of the way this started yesterday. And I just want to get that one out of the way at the top.
Yeah, I asked Lucas to let me address that, and so I thought about it a little today during my workday. Look, we all know Ari Emanuel to be an incredibly performative, erratic, and in my mind, always self-serving human. I think much to the detriment of not just his colleagues, but his clients, and the few that he's got left, and more importantly, his investors. And the idea that he, in any way, could think that he could hold himself out as morally superior to anyone, but specifically around the issues of that are so challenging for women is odd. It's ironic that the companies that he's led his group into and the men that he's partnered with and defends are maybe his advisors on women's issues, I don't know. But these are very serious issues. They're not meant for any kind of hypocritical sound bites, so you're not going to get any from me. We were falsely accused of something that we did not do, and we're going to address those accusations in court, in a proper forum. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. You mentioned you didn't think he was doing right by his investors. This is not a segue into you bashing Ari more. I'm transitioning to your business. You have a new majority owner.
Yes.
How did that deal come about? I still don't. We reported on it, but I still don't get the origin story of how this French luxury goods billionaire ends up buying one of Hollywood's biggest talent agencies.
I guess I'll tell the origin story in a way, which has to start with the previous investor, majority stakeholder that we had was a company that many of you know called TPG. Excellent company, excellent individuals. We had 13 years with them, which I think is the longest holding that company had with any private company. We did really well by each other in terms of the decisions that we made and how we grew the company and what the value of the company ended up being. A couple of years ago, a group of us, including Kevin and Richard and Howie and Vino and a large group of people, decided that there was an opportunity for us to think on behalf of really the direction of the company and where we wanted to take it, really for the client base more than for us, in a different direction. And we began the process of thinking what the adjacencies were to the business that we've built and the clients that we serve, both in the entertainment sector and in sports, although you could argue that that's just one category now, and what those adjacencies should be, what kind of expertise we would need, who already had it, who might be like-minded, and in finding this relationship with Artemis, specifically Francois-Henri Pinault and his team, who are terrific, we feel like we got super lucky, and that needle in a haystack moment happened. And it began 2 summers ago at a conference that I was already friends with Francois-Henri, and it occurred to me that with some input from my partners and from a few key friends, that they might be perfect. And I suggested the idea to him, and he instantly got it in a way that all the brand alignment is there. They're aspirational. On a human level, they love artists. They love creativity. They like wine. They are as ambitious as we are with a lot of capital and long-term thinkers. And it took about 14 months to figure it out. And
what were the tricky parts?
All of it. They're all kidding aside. There were the only thing tricky, the most complicated pieces were TPG, and we had such a good relationship that TPG was reluctant to go, which many people can't believe because they did so well by it. But we had a very close relationship, and I think they liked us being in their portfolio, both for the information we have and the reach that we have, and that we do something that most companies don't do, which I'm really proud of. We also have an investor in Temasek, and so there were multiple countries and multiple companies and just a transfer of majority ownership, so there was no sale or outright sale. None of us wanted to leave, so that was not even something we considered. So it was just complicated the way deals are, but we are all very, very excited about it and just getting started, so don't have a whole lot to say about the next steps.
You do have a new title, though.
I have a new title, which means I work for a lot more people, I've realized. I don't want to dismiss the fact that there's a thing called CEO in our company, but it would be not accurate to say that a lot has changed in terms of how we run the place. It's always been a mystery to people how we run the place, because in our minds, 35 people run the place and we all kind of work for each other. It's a very big part of our culture to lead is to serve, return inter-office phone calls first. All of that's true. It's not made up. And so, yeah, I have a new title. I'm responsible for the sort of overall direction and strategy of the company with a bunch of people, Kevin, Richard, Maha, Joel, Hillary, the whole Lourd, Jim Burtson most specifically. So it's a lot more of the same, because I do have a feeling if things go wrong, I'm the one who's staying up late.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm curious, TPG is out, you guys didn't sell, but some of you did do fairly well in this, right?
I mean, it's all relative. Yeah, I did fairly well when I left Louisiana. Yes, you will never hear me complain about my position or the majority of our company's position. I think especially in the moment that we're all in, both in our industry and in the world. But it was not, as reported, some big influx of cash that two people took all the money. That's not what happened here. That has happened before, as you probably know, but that has not happened here. So, yeah, we did fine.
I think that's our Emmanuel dig number 2. Your company.
I'm gonna really try not to do that, but it's kind of hard. So,
your company was worth. Correct me if I get any of these numbers wrong, but I think your second TPG transaction, your company was worth like 1.1 billion, something like that. When you bought ICM last year, what you said was 5.5?
2 years.
2 years, sorry.
Yeah.
5.5. How has that jumped up to 7 in basically gone from 1 to 7 in a decade? When, yes, you've expanded, but it doesn't feel like your business has changed that drastically, or what am I missing?
It's changed really drastically, and I think we don't broadcast what we do and the depth of it and how much it is. And maybe it helps to talk about it in terms of numbers, but when we started, we were at 225, 230 people, and we're at 3,400 people now. And the addition and growth of all the different businesses. And ICM was a supercharging event for us, and it was meant to send a message to everyone that we were doubling down on representation. It's what we're best at in the world, I would say. It's what we love to do. It's what we think is the most important asset going forward in the whole media ecosystem. It's talent, and what creativity is, and what unique skill sets are. If you're talking about athletes, is key. All the distribution systems in the world don't matter if there's not something on them that a customer wants to see. And so our strategy is really simple, and it's very focused, and it is about representation, and it's about service in every single way. So the ICM edition, through both Stellar Sports, which is an amazing group of people in Europe, primarily in football, soccer, whatever, who's ever here, and both the publishing division and what the agents that were in television and film added to our culture, which was the big surprise, that they fit so much, and they supercharged it because they were so blown away by what the system was, that it reminded our people of what a unique thing we have. It created a lot of value there. The unknowns of our EBITDA growth, which we're not a public company. We didn't want to be a public company.
Feel free to disclose if you'd like.
I won't. But was really why this new partnership with Francois Henri and team is such a perfect solution for us now. It rules out nothing. Bless you.
Thank you.
You're going to get the flu right after this. You know that, right? I'm a talent agent. I know what happens. But it's for now what we want to focus on are our clients, and not on a quarter-to-quarter fear of having to add things that don't fit organically and that don't allow us to take advantage of what the opportunities are in the new world.
I'm curious because you talked earlier about when you bought ICM, part of the messaging, rightly or wrongly, was all these other companies that we're negotiating with are now getting bigger and bigger, and we should also be bigger, in part to enhance our power, which brings me to a question I have. As you are now dealing with Apple and Amazon and also kind of supercharged media companies, does talent have more or less power than they did, say, when you started or 10 years ago?
I think it depends on who it is, and one of the benefits, and to your point, why ICM was essential, and we wouldn't have done it if culturally we didn't think the people there were going to fit with our people. We would have just built brick by brick, and it would have been fine. But what the opportunity presented was to create a better, more aligned system with actors, writers, directors, and athletes, so that we could be prepared and we could take advantage of that aggregation of artists and clients to combat, call it what it is, the global behemoths that we're all up against. And I don't say that to demonize them at all. I like all of them. And I'm frankly grateful they're in the business. Imagine the last 5 years without Netflix or Apple or Amazon. It's a dramatically different world. And so anyone that just blanketly demonizes them, I think, is foolish. I think there is absolutely a misalignment of interest in many ways, and I think that's what these strikes.
How so?
I think that's what these strikes are about. I think the world changed so dramatically, and the contracts didn't change, and the successful conversation that has to happen is an acknowledgement on all sides of the fact that the world's changed, the fact that these companies are losing money, and that there isn't just some endless amount of cash for everyone. And since FinCEN, not to go too far back, but since then, there has been a misalignment of these partnerships. And in the old days, artists, showrunners, directors, actors, writers, on the media side of things, shared in the ownership of the back ends of individual projects. And though there were fights and there were audits, there was a sense of when the team won, everyone won. When streaming occurred or showed up and buyouts started to occur, that went away. And what the disadvantage that was for the people that were in the middle and lower rounds of things that are beginning their careers is unfair. And I don't think anything about what we're dealing with now is simple. And the idea that this isn't going to continue for decades to come is a foolish notion. And I have ideas about what should happen to avoid this. But and I think a lot of people do. I'm not alone.
When you say you have ideas about what should happen to avoid this, what are you talking about? But first of all, what is this? You mean more like are you talking about the current labor strife, or
the whole thing, Lucas? I think that if we break it down, we take the labor strikes and why work stoppages had to occur. It's got to be. We've got to change how we speak to each other. They have to change how they interact. It can't be left until 2 months before a contract expires to try and solve something that might not have year-to-year solutions. There might be a decades-long approach that has to occur, but that's got to be discussed and negotiated and agreed upon. There's got to be an apples-to-apples conversation. And one of the things that I think, someone in the marketplace will declare a buyer. I don't know who this magical person is or company is, but I'm going to do my damnedest to try and create them. Someone will have an incredible market advantage if they just realign with artists and just say, if we win, you win. And if I were a 30-year-old man and asked to run one of those companies, that's what I would do.
How do you force Netflix? Probably not going to be the first to do it. Disney, Warner Brothers, whomever, to do that.
I think Netflix could surprise everyone. I think Netflix has been the most innovative about pivoting and changing and getting to what they've got to get to. So I don't rule them out. And the irony is, I think that Ted and Bella and Scott and Reed, before he stepped back a little bit, are incredibly artist friendly. They love movies and television shows. They love actors. They love documentaries. They love stories. So though their business as it currently exists is what we all have to help to change, and I hope they want to change it. The DNA of why people come to Hollywood is in them in a real way. And I think that's true for most of these companies. So their business models, and I think part of what's been really difficult about these negotiations, both with the DGA, the WGA, and now SAG, is that the companies, for the first time in a pronounced way, have very different agendas. And what was difficult, or is difficult, about that room is, as well-intentioned as all of those people are, I really do believe they are, their businesses are challenged by different things, be it domestic, not a streaming piece, a global play, back ends, no back ends, old media versus married with new media, pure new media. That's a difficult pattern bargaining dynamic.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, well...
Am I talking too much?
No, you're great. I'm going to ask you a question that I hate being asked, so I apologize, but because you are following this very closely. Well, the first part I don't mind. One, are you surprised that there was this sort of fissure in the studio actor talks yesterday? And then the follow-up, which is the one I hate, do you have a prediction for when this will finally end?
Oh, God. I don't hate the question as much as I did 5 months ago. I do know why there was a fissure last night, and I believe it's being reported on.
Yeah, Ted talked about it this morning.
He did? Okay, yeah. Good. Or not good. But no, I'm kidding. But it's not my negotiation, and so I've been very careful, as you know, to not insert myself into this in any way and tell people what they should or shouldn't do. The one thing I and a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my associates across town at other agencies and management firms have done is to try and force communication. And what I hope happens is that everyone learns from this, and the minute this is over, that forced communication happens. I also hope that a negotiation begins immediately with IATSE, immediately. We cannot leave that union out till June of next year with the risk of the positioning that has to occur in order to achieve a contract. It will gut the business. Between the pandemic and where we are now, that would be a disaster. So anyone that's got any influence, encourage people to start an early negotiation. The positive thing I'll say, which is, again, not informed by either side, but my just observation, is that at least I feel like we're now in a place where there's an apples to apples dialogue going on about what the issues are, and there's common language. There's a massive money gap, massive, and that's going to be harder to bridge than I think people believe. But both sides, and it's they both have to take a breath for 2 days and get back in the room.
You talked about the sort of calamity if IATSE also goes on strike, but even if that doesn't happen, one of the questions that just comes up a lot these days, sort of what, on the other side of these strikes, with companies already pulling back, what does the industry look like? What changes about it in the next 2-3 years?
I think it remains to be seen, and again, I think that one of the unintended consequences of work stoppages is that the company side of the equation find themselves with a lot more time to strategize, plan their businesses, get to know each other, and literally get to know each other in a way that they're competitive on a Tuesday and then they're in a room on a Wednesday and it's going long and they're sharing ideas about what they think does and doesn't work, which is terrible for our business because it homogenizes what gets made and where things are.
But you think, sorry to jump in, I'm just curious, you used the word homogenize, and one thing that has come up a lot, do you feel like this age of abundance over the last few years of just how much was being made, was that to the detriment of what was being made?
I think everyone's got a different opinion about what they like and don't like. For my personal taste, I am thrilled at what I get to find every night if I have time to look for something. So I personally don't think too much was made. I think the customer will tell us when there's too much made and they won't watch things. And I think part of the misalignment I talked about before is imagine if things didn't get picked up or movies didn't get made that people didn't watch or go to see. That's how it used to be. The customer decided. I do think there's going to be less made in the middle price range. I think there's going to be more made in the higher price range because when you get to global events like Barbie or Oppenheimer or Super Mario Brothers, it's worth the investment, and it's clear that the audience is there, and they just need to be given what they want. The middle, which ends up, quickly on one of the services in a way that we're watching movies that we don't know how they got made or when they got made and all of that. I think that will probably be curated better, and I hope there's more inexpensive things that give more people the chance to express themselves and have their work seen.
Are you at all worried? One thing that's come up a lot during some of the retrenchment is, there'd been a lot of investment, especially after the murder of George Floyd, in diversity initiatives, right? And then we had this batch of people who are overseeing those initiatives at different companies leave, and I think a lot of concerns that as companies try to be more safe, that they will view making stories of people from different backgrounds as less safe.
I think it's something we all have to pound the table for, and we at our company have been super aggressive about not just signing those voices, but making sure that their things get made. And the bigger companies that were really well-intended and got in and tried to create divisions like that, it becomes the thing they worry about last now because there's so many other pressures. That being said, I think there are more financing sources to finance movies like that, and I think that audience is dormant in there also. And again, it's a great business for someone to start that focuses on it. We're committed, our company is, to staying with it. And I mentioned to you, there's this little school we started in there, a bunch of people here from Louisiana and New York that are starting schools like our school at Roybal. And it was George Clooney's idea that's a below-the-line school that IATSE partnered with us on, to their credit, so you can make deals with unions. I proved it. It's all about all the different 9 divisions of IATSE, and everyone's Black, brown, and Asian. And we're going to try and replicate that model in many places. But whether these companies continue to invest in that or not, the kids that we're teaching are going to tell those stories. And they're going to serve the audience. And if the audience is there, that business will grow. And I believe it's there.
Does that apply to your own company? When I realize
yes.
You're not going anywhere anytime soon, but when you think about the people who succeed you, Kevin, Richard, leading the company,
Yeah.
That's a priority? You can sort of say, I know that I will put at least 1 or 2 people of color in charge, hopefully a woman.
I don't think. I think it's already happening, and again, I weirdly don't think I'm gonna have to worry about it or even have to consciously decide to do it. I think it's happening. I know it's happening, and the people that work at our place, and just how committed and how good they are. But of course, if you're not conscious of inclusion and doing your damnedest to make sure someone has the ability to succeed, then you're not doing your part, and so you got to do that. But yeah.
Okay, I have one last question, which I've been bad about doing the polls, so I'm going to ask everybody to get involved in this.
Polls.
Yeah,
I'd like to do a poll on whether I should have a pink backdrop on my photo, or if I should stick with the old man sort
unless
of bald
I screwed that up
thing.
and we don't have the poll for you.
Okay,
if
sorry.
Chelsea can wave it.
What's your poll?
No poll. Okay, I screwed it up. The poll was going to be about movie stars, and I was going to ask you to pick which of 5 movie stars you thought was going to be, like, if you could represent one of them, who would they be?
I would never answer that question.
Okay, I'll put it. Oh, there, I see. I get the trigger no poll here. I'll ask it in a different way then. Okay, who is you spot talent? Who's going to be the breakout star of next year?
Lucas, I've learned a long time ago not to do that, and though there are many people who come to mind, if I say 3 names,
you single one out, you get in trouble.
Well, I just it's not fair to the other ones, but you'll see in the work that's about to show up whenever we get to start seeing things again, because what this extended work stoppage does is disrupt the rhythm that we all have with what people make and when they're making it. And people that are great artists make things in their time. And so everything's a little delayed now in this way. But there are amazing things that are coming that have really fresh voices, new actors, and we're super excited about it. So I'm not going to do that.
I could ask you one more, but I feel like I know that your answer would also be, I'm not touching it. Brian, thank you very much. Stick around for 1 second if you can. This will be a very, very brief remarks. First of all, thank you to everyone here who came, even the people who are leaving right now. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to everyone who worked on it. I get a lot of the glory, but it was... I wouldn't be doing my job if I did not thank our sponsors. So thank you, BMW of North America. Thank you to the Red Sea Film Foundation. And thank you to supporting sponsor Amazon Music. They have arranged a concert for us tonight. You should stick around for it. Lola Brooks, she's awesome. I hope I got that name right. You will be able to catch up with all of the footage on YouTube after it. I have learned a lot through this event. It's been great. Always start with Ari Emanuel, always close with Brian Lourd. The good news is we will be back here a year from now, October 9th and 10th. I hope that you will all join us. And in the meantime, just like last night, we've got some great food, we've got some drinks, we've got a musical performance. Thank you so much. That's the show.